think about meal kit companies, what do you see? Probably long, complicated recipes and subscriptions you can't escape. But with the new Blue Apron, we're doing meal delivery differently. No subscription needed. Faster, easier meals. And the same dedication to quality we've always had. Shop 100+ meals at blueapron.com. Get 50% off your first 2 orders with code APRON50. Terms and conditions apply. Visit blueapron.com/terms for more.
Big news! Wayfair's tax refund sale is on now. Right now through March 2nd, you can score up to 70% off furniture, decor, appliances, rugs, and more. With fast and easy shipping straight to your door. Plus, amazing flash deals. Shop Wayfair's tax refund sale now to make the most of your refund with huge savings through March 2nd at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Hello, I'm Sarah and welcome to The Whispering Woods After Dark. We're going to Liverpool in this episode. I've got a few time slip stories. Now these are different to the ones that are normally shared. I thought I'd go for some that aren't so famous, basically. I'll get straight into it. Are you ready for the story? A soft drizzle slit the cobblestones as she stepped out of Liverpool's central station onto Bold Street. The noise of the modern city fell away into an uncanny quiet. In that instant, the world around her transformed. A horse-drawn hansom cab clattered past, its driver hunched in a Victorian top hat. Women in bonnets and flowing skirts strolled arm in arm, with gentlemen clad in dark suits. Gaslight lanterns flickered where electric streetlights should have been. She froze, with her heart pounding. This must be a film set, she thought wildly. Yet there were no cameras or gawking onlookers. Only the earnest faces of the 19th century strangers, who didn't seem to see her at all. For a few disorientating seconds, she stood in a Liverpool over a century past. Then, as abruptly as it came, the vision evaporated. The cobblestones were just wet pavement again. The hansom cab was gone. Cars whooshed by in the drizzle, and neon shop signs reappeared where antique storefronts had been. A woman lingered on the curb, the echo of hooves and the rustle of crinolines fading from her memory. Something impossible had just happened on Bold Street. Time slips. The phrase sounds like something from science fiction. Yet time slip stories bear a resemblance to folklore. An ordinary person wanders into a strange place, witnesses the impossible, and returns with a tale no one else can easily believe. Technically speaking, a time slip is a paranormal phenomenon in which people seem to be suddenly transported to a different era, as if the fabric of time folds. In these moments, the surroundings and architecture change, and everyday streets can transform into scenes from decades or even centuries past. We often dismiss such incidents as tricks of perception, imagination, or coincidence. But in Liverpool, there is one location so famous for this phenomenon that it's earned a reputation as Time Slip Central. Bold Street. Bold Street is a busy, vibrant road in the city centre. Known for its shops and cafes by day, it's also known, in local law, as a place where the past bleeds through into the present. Ever since the mid-1990s, a pattern of reports has emerged. Ordinary people, shoppers, students, police officers, and visitors have described stepping into another time while on Bold Street. In an eye blink, familiar modern storefronts turn into bygone businesses. Strangers in contemporary clothes are replaced by folks dressed in out-of-style fashions, and vintage vehicles appear on the road. These episodes usually last only moments, but they feel shockingly real to those who experience them. It was a warm Saturday in July 1996, and off-duty policeman Frank rounded the corner onto Bold Street with a spring in his step. The city bustled with weekend shoppers. Frank was on his way to meet his wife Carol at their favourite bookstore, Dylan's, just up the block. Carol had gone ahead to pick up a copy of Trainspotting, while Frank detoured briefly to a music shop for a CD. Now, as he approached the ornate facade of the Lyceum building at the top of Bold Street, Frank suddenly noticed a hush falling over the street. The air, moments ago filled with chatter and car horns, had become still. Frank paused, puzzled. In that moment of silence, a small box van barreled around the corner and nearly clipped him. The driver leaned on a horn that bleated not the modern beat Frank expected, but a harsh, old-fashioned honk. Startled, Frank jumped back as the van sped past. Painted on its side, he glimpsed a name in bold letters. Copeland's. The make of the vehicle, the logo, it all looked dated, like something from the 1950s. Regaining his composure, Frank looked up the street and felt the world tilt. Dylan's bookstore was gone. In its place hung a sign with curvy old-fashioned lettering that read Crips above the door. He blinked hard. Crips. He knew Bold Street well, and there was no shop by that name in 1996. Through the window he could see ladies' handbags, shoes and umbrellas, neatly arranged on displays. The Dylans was supposed to be selling books in that spot. Carol was likely inside right now, looking for her novel. How could a clothing shop be here? A chill prickled the back of Frank's neck. He slowly turned around. The entire street scene had changed. The people nearest him were dressed in styles decades out of date. Men in long brown overcoats and felt hats. Women in modest blouses and calf-length skirts with their hair pinned up in scarves. Shiny modern cars were nowhere to be seen. Instead, a couple of vintage-style automobiles trundled along the road, all curved fenders and chrome, straight out of the mid-20th century. Even the buildings looked subtly different in the sunlight, with older signs and paintwork that he didn't recognise. He glanced at the newspaper kiosk by the curb. The headlines, the design, everything about it looked old. This can't be real, he told himself. Perhaps a film production really had taken over Bold Street while he was in the music shop. It was the only explanation that made sense. And yet, there were no lights or cameras. The world around him seemed genuinely changed. Across the street, a young woman stood by the entrance of the store that now bore the name Crips. Unlike everyone else, she looked completely modern. Jeans, trendy top, a shopping bag over her shoulder. Her mouth hung open in evident confusion, mirroring the expression on Frank's own face. She caught Frank's eye and gave a nervous little smile, as if to say, "Do you see this too?" Relieved, Frank realised he wasn't alone. Whoever this stranger was, she also seemed out of place amid the throng of 1950s pedestrians. Frank crossed Bold Street, dodging around an antique Morris Minor that puttered past. He approached the young woman, and they shared a moment of silent understanding in the din of a time not their own. Taking a steadying breath, Frank pushed open the door to Cripps and stepped inside, the woman following close behind him. A bell jingled overhead. For a split second, the interior matched the facade. He saw racks of elegant women's shoes and rows of handbags displayed on wooden counters. Then Frank blinked, and the world jumped. The handbag racks were gone. The shelves were once again lined with books and glossy covers. The store's lighting changed from old-fashioned lamps to bright fluorescents. They were standing in Dylan's bookshop once more. Exactly as it should be. The young woman let out a shaky laugh, trying to mask her rattled nerves. "That was strange," she murmured. "I thought it was a new clothes shop," Frank exhaled, realising he had been holding his breath. "You saw it too?" he asked quietly. She nodded. "Yes, I thought it was a clothes shop. I was going to look around. But it's a bookshop," she said, voice trailing off in bewilderment. The two of them stood there among the tall bookshelves, now surrounded by oblivious customers, perusing novels as if nothing odd had occurred. The bustle of 1996 Liverpool droned normally outside the door. Frank stepped back outside, half expecting to see Kaplan's van or ladies in headscarves again. But Bold Street was firmly back in the present. The familiar cars, the modern crowds, the concrete roar of the city unmuffled once more. Carol, his wife, came out of the bookstore moments later, cheerfully oblivious to what had just transpired. Frank struggled to find the words to explain. How could he? He was a practical man, a retired police officer used to facts and evidence. And yet he had just experienced something profoundly unexplainable in broad daylight. 15 years after Frank's brush with the 1950s, a Liverpool teen named Imogen set out on a casual errand that would turn into a strange journey. It was May 2011, a normal Friday morning, crisp and bright. Imogen, 17 years old and full of purpose, hopped off the bus near Whitechapel, not far from Bold Street. She was on a mission to buy some baby clothes for her sister Abigail's newborn. As she walked along Lord Street, she noticed something unusual on the corner at Whitechapel. A shiny new mothercare store had seemingly appeared there. Imogen could have sworn that corner usually housed a bank. In fact, she thought her mother did her banking there. But there it was, Mothercare, the well-known baby goods chain, with bright displays of infant clothing and prams in the window. A large banner hung across the glass, suggesting a grand opening or sale. Imogen shrugged off her confusion. Perhaps the bank branch had closed, and Mothercare had opened recently without her noticing. Delighted at the convenience, she stepped through the doors and into the shop. Inside, the store was bustling with shoppers. Young mothers pushed prams between racks of tiny outfits. Imogen breathed in that familiar new clothes smell. and began picking out a few adorable things for her baby niece. She selected a soft pink velour cardigan, a set of polka dot bibs, and a pair of knitted booties, all perfect gifts. Strangely, the prices were bargain cheap, far lower than she'd expected. Perhaps the store was running an opening sale, she thought. Imogen gathered her items and headed to the till. A middle-aged sales clerk in a tidy blouse rang at the total on an old-style register. Imogen pulled out her credit card to pay. At the sight of the plastic card, the clerk gave her a puzzled frown. "We don't take those, love," she said apologetically. Imogen blinked. "Don't take credit cards? What kind of modern store didn't accept them in 2011? The clerk quietly explained they could only accept cash or maybe a cheque. Imogen was taken aback. She couldn't remember the last time she'd seen anyone pay by cheque. Frustrated and a bit embarrassed, she apologised and stepped outside, letting the next customer, a pregnant woman with a 90s-style perm, take her place. Imogen left the items at the counter, cheeks warm with disappointment. She didn't have nearly enough cash in her wallet to cover the purchase. No matter, she decided, she could swing by an ATM or come back later with the money. After one more wistful glance at the cute baby clothes she'd had to relinquish, Imogen exited the mother care and walked a few doors down to a different shop, trying to shake off the odd interaction. Later that day, Imogen arrived back at home and casually mentioned the new mother care to her mother. "It's nice they opened one on Whitechapel. I almost got those lovely cute bibs they had on sale," Imogen said. Her mother paused in the middle of making tea and gave her a quizzical look. "Mother care on Whitechapel? What are you talking about?" she asked. "The one by the corner near the bank," Imogen replied. Her mother's brow furrowed. "Imogen, that mother care closed years ago. There hasn't been a mother care there since. Oh, I don't know. The 1980s maybe. That's an HSBC bank now. My branch. I was there this morning." Imogen stared at her mum, unable to speak for a moment. Closed years ago. But she had stood inside it barely an hour earlier, handling the merchandise and chatting with the sales clerk. Imogen insisted her mother must be mistaken. She described the layout of the store, the merchandise, even the sale prices. Her mother's face had gone pale. "Imogen, there hasn't been a mother care there in decades," she repeated. Imogen grabbed her coat. "Come on, I'll show you," she said, determined to prove she wasn't crazy. Together they drove back into the city centre as early evening shadows stretched across Lord Street. Imogen marched her mother to the exact spot where the store had been. And there, occupying the corner lot, as it had for years, was the HSBC bank branch. Lights off now after closing time. There was no trace of mother care. Not a single display or sign hinted that the baby store had ever existed. Imogen peered through the bank's glass doors, half expecting to catch a glimpse of racks of infant clothes behind the teller's counters. But of course, there was nothing of the sort. Her mother stood quietly, watching the confusion and fear play out on Imogen's face. They went home in silence, each struggling for an explanation. In the days that followed, Imogen and her mum dug around for answers. They soon confirmed that indeed a mother care had once operated on that corner, but it had shut its doors in the early 1990s. Somehow, on that spring day in 2011, Imogen had walked into a store that belonged to the past. A chilly afternoon in 2006 found 19-year-old Sean bolting out of a shop near Hanover Street. He had made a very poor decision in a moment of desperation. Sean had snatched a couple of small items from a store, and a security guard caught sight of him. Now Sean was running for it, ducking through the warren of city centre streets to shake off his pursuer. He raced down Hanover Street, trainers slapping the pavement. Behind him, the guard shouted for him to stop. Sean's eyes darted desperately for an escape route. Up ahead to his right, he spotted a narrow cut-through, Brooks Alley, a little dead-end service lane tucked between buildings. Without hesitating, Sean veered into the alley, hoping the guard would miss the turn. As soon as he entered the alley's confines, the sounds of the city grew muffled. Sean skidded to a stop behind a bin, chest heaving. The air felt oddly heavy, pressing on his lungs. It wasn't just exertion. A tightness was in the atmosphere. He waited, trying to quiet his breathing, expecting the security guard to thunder around the corner any second. But the seconds ticked by, and the guard never appeared. Maybe I lost him, he thought, relief flooding in. After a minute, he straightened up. The alley was silent. There was an uncomfortable stillness and a faint electrical buzz in the air. Cautiously, Sean crept back to the mouth of Brooks Alley and peered out onto Hanover Street. What he saw made him recoil. The view down the street looked different from just moments before. He stepped out of the alley fully and glanced around. The familiar roadworks that had been tearing up this section of Hanover Street for weeks were gone. The pavement underfoot was smooth, as if freshly paved, and painted with markings that hadn't been there before. Sean's eyes travelled to the buildings. Some storefronts had changed style. Signage that he distinctly remembered as modern was now sporting retro fonts and old logos. A few pedestrians walked by, but their dress was utterly dated. Men in sharp suits with narrow ties. Women in knee-length coats with beehive hairdos or short 60s bobs. A couple passed carrying shopping bags, bearing long-defunct department store names. Sean's mouth went dry. Hanover Street had transformed into what looked like a scene from the late 1960s. A bus rumbled past, and Sean stared. It was an old-fashioned double-decker with a historic Liverpool transport livery, not the sleek buses he was used to. Trembling now, Sean crossed onto Bold Street instinctively, drawn toward the more open area by the old Lyceum building. He noticed there were traffic lights at the junction. Wait, traffic lights? There hadn't been any traffic lights at this particular spot when he'd run through just minutes ago. And beside the Lyceum, which in 2006 housed a bar Sean often visited, were trimmed bushes and flower beds that he'd never seen there before. Unlike the brief flickering disorientation Frank had felt in his time slip, Sean's strange new reality showed no sign of reverting. He walked in a daze among people who gave him quizzical looks, perhaps because his clothes looked outlandishly futuristic to them, or perhaps because he looked as scared as he felt. "This isn't real, this isn't real," he whispered to himself, trying to steady his breathing. Everything felt real. The chill of the air, the smell of cigarette smoke from a passerby's freshly lit cigarette, the sound of a Beatles tune wafting from a nearby window. Frantic questions tumbled through Sean's mind. What year was it? How do I get back? He patted his pockets and pulled out his cell phone, his lifeline. The screen was blank. He had no signal at all. The device itself might as well have been dead in this strange pocket of time. Sean had never felt so alone. Fighting the urge to scream, he made his way along Bold Street until he spotted a small newsstand kiosk on a corner. If this is real, The papers will tell me the date. He rushed over to the wooden kiosk, where an old man was arranging the day's issues. Sean scanned the masthead of the Liverpool Daily Post, visible through the glass. There in bold print, the date stared back at him. 18th of May, 1967. Sean stumbled away. 1967. It was impossible. Yet there it was. He was really in 1967 Liverpool, on a busy afternoon long before he was even born. How was he supposed to get back to 2006? What if he was trapped here, with no identity, no money that would make sense? Cut off from everyone he knew. The enormity of it threatened to crush him. Fear lending him focus, Sean remembered a landmark, H. Samuel, the jeweller's shop further up Bold Street. In 2006, that was roughly where he had first sensed something was wrong. Maybe, if he retraced his steps, he could find whatever invisible threshold he'd crossed and slip back. Keeping his eyes down to avoid drawing too much attention, Sean hurried toward the spot by the jeweller. Each second that ticked by in this alien 1967 streetscape felt heavier. He reached H. Samuel's storefront and paused. This should be near where he had entered this time. He pulled out his phone one more time and held it up. One bar, then two. Suddenly his phone display lit up, a flurry of delayed texts and notifications pinging all at once. A wave of relief nearly knocked him off his feet. He looked around and noticed that, in his peripheral vision down the street, the figures of people looked different, modern. Not wasting another second, he broke into a run and hopped onto the first bus he saw that was heading in the direction of home. As he sank into the seat, he peered out of the window. In the distance, at the far end of Bold Street, he could still make out a few ghostly figures dressed in 1960s clothing, moving as if behind a shimmering veil before blinking out of sight. Sean squeezed his eyes shut, unwilling to look any longer. Sean confided his story to a local newspaper. He was interviewed in detail, and he insisted every bizarre detail was true. He recounted the old cars, the newspapers, the date, over and over with unwavering consistency. The security guard who had chased him was also interviewed. Incredibly, the guard corroborated part of Sean's tale. He affirmed that upon turning into Brooks Alley after the fleeing teen, Sean had simply vanished. One moment the guard saw the boy in his sights, and the next he was gone into thin air. There was nowhere in that dead-end alley for Sean to have escaped without being seen. The guard was baffled, and perhaps even a little spooked, that a petty thief could disappear so completely. When journalists dug into Sean's claims, they found that the features he described, the traffic lights, the plants by the Lyceum, the style of cars, were all consistent with Liverpool in the late 1960s. Sean hadn't just fabricated a story to evade trouble. He knew things he couldn't have known unless he had genuinely seen them. For Sean, the experience was deeply frightening. He later admitted that in the moment, he was terrified he might never make it back from 1967. He hoped someone might offer an explanation for what happened to him. Instead, he mostly found that others came forward with their own similar tales. Old Street, it seemed, had many ghosts of time, and not all of them were content to stay put in their own era.
Big news! Wayfair's tax refund sale is on now. Right now through March 2nd, you can score up to 70% off furniture, decor, appliances, rugs, and more. With fast and easy shipping straight to your door. Plus, amazing flash deals. Shop Wayfair's tax refund sale now to make the most of your refund with huge savings through March 2nd at wayfair.com.
Wayfair, every style, every home.
Before all the algorithm-fed blah and the endless sea of dupes, shopping used to feel more fun. But here's a confession, fashionistas. You can find that fun feeling again on eBay. It's not mindless scrolling. It's a fashion pursuit. And when you score that rare Adidas collab or the Dior saddlebag you've been manifesting, it's a rush. eBay has millions of pre-loved finds from hundreds of brands backed by eBay Authenticity Guarantee. eBay. Things people love.
Terrifying to me. Terrifying. I feel the same way as Sean. I'd be so panicked that I couldn't get back to my time. I think I'd probably have a heart attack and die on the street. But yeah, it's bizarre what is going on in Liverpool. We don't have any near where I live, unfortunately. Well, fortunately, because like I said, I don't want to go through anything like that. We did have a mother care, but that is well gone now. Like Liverpool, our mother care has gone and it's now an H&M. No, it's not. H&M has gone. It's now a Lidl. So there we go. Well, that's it from me today. I hope you enjoyed and we will catch you again on Tuesday. Take care, everyone. The stories told on the Whispering Woods are inspired by historical records, witness reports, and local folklore. While every effort is made to research and represent events accurately, some details, names, and locations may differ from official accounts or have been changed out of respect for those involved. These episodes are created for storytelling and entertainment purposes and should not be considered definitive fact or investigative journalism.